Okay. So we switch to the slideshow.
Yes, sure.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This presentation and today's World Cancer Day. So we're having two talks on one is breast cancer awareness, and the second topic will be oral cancer awareness. This presentation is basically a very plain and simple presentation. I've tried to avoid all the medical languages as far as possible. So in case there's any questions, you can ask me either at the same point of time, or we can have the question answer after the session. So Christina, can we start? Yeah, okay. So let's see why are we here. We'll start on breast cancer. So breast cancer basically is 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. So this is the actual scenario in the world. And if you pick up randomly 8 women randomly, one of them will definitely develop breast cancer in their lifetime. So that's the actual statistics as of today. Breast cancer is the most common cancer among women worldwide. And the reason why we're having this breast cancer awareness is because 60% of the breast cancers in India are diagnosed in the advanced stage. We need to diagnose cancers in the early stage. So the idea of having breast cancer awareness lectures is to diagnose them in the early stages. So it is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in women. 1 in 3,000 pregnant or lactating women can have breast cancer. So let's see what is this breast cancer and how to deal with it. So basically, we'll go just plain simple anatomy of the female breast. So as in the center of the breast is the nipple and the areola. The lines in the blue are the ducts which drain the milk into the nipple. Beyond the ducts are the red lines, that is called the lobules, that is the breast lobules. And beyond those red lines are the yellow area, that is the fat of the breast. Okay, these are lined by the lymphatic system, which is the green lines. So any infection, any cancer developed in these ducts or lobules drains into the lymphatic system. Or the lymphatic system drains into the underarms. Okay, so all the green channels get collected in the underarms. Okay, and the red lines beyond the green lines are the pectoralis major muscle. Okay, so this is the basic anatomy of the breast, and we'll be referring to this image all the time. So please keep this in the back of the mind. Next. So this is another similar image in a cut section where you see a malignant tumor growing within the breast. This can be either in the duct, which is commonly known as infiltrating duct carcinoma, or it can occur in the lobules, which is known as infiltrating lobular carcinoma. The blue lines were the ducts. So any tumor growing in the duct is called as infiltrating duct carcinoma, and any tumor growing in the lobules is called as a infiltrating lobular carcinoma. So similar anatomy: fat, breast ducts, nipple, mammary ducts, fat cells, pectoralis major muscle behind. Are we there online? Can we switch to the next slide? So who are the people predisposed? So people, these are the main causes, just a few risk factors what I've just jotted down. So prior history of any breast cancer, prior history of any mantle irradiation, that is irradiation to the chest wall, for any other disease, family history of any breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and colorectal cancers. These three cancers are interrelated genetically. History of tobacco usage, alcohol usage, being overweight also is a risk factor for breast cancer. Oral contraceptive usage, contraceptives which have estrogen and progesterone, which are more than 3 to 5, using it more than 3 to 5 years, has a higher risk of breast cancer. So not breastfeeding a baby is another cause for high risk factor. So breastfeeding a baby for at least recommended 6 months is the ideal time. Beyond that is okay, but minimum 6 months of breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding that they say. Late first pregnancy after the age of 30 years. So if your first pregnancy is after the age of 30 years, you run a high risk factor for breast cancer. early menarche, late menopause. Okay, previous breast lesion showing atypia. Next, please. So similar in pictorial format. So family history, if anyone's having breast cancer, ovarian cancer, colorectal cancer, these are interlinked. Gene mutations, we will talk about later. Okay, late childbearing, that is after the age of 30 years. Your first child after the age of 30 years is a high risk category. Early menstruation, late menopause, obesity, increased breast density, prolonged usage of oral contraceptives. Again, I'll tell you, estrogen and progesterone oral contraceptive pills are harmful if they're used more than 3 to 5 years. Okay, hormone replacement therapy after menopause, and alcohol intake and tobacco chewing. Next, please. So, what is the age group? Next. So, the age group, about if you see 25 years back, was more in the category of 50 to 60 years. But now it's shifting to a younger age group, and we see the category shifting to the earlier age group, early by 10 years, in the age group of 40 to 50 years. So it's basically there is a paradigm shift of this age group of breast cancer in India from the 50 to 60 year of age group to 40 to 50 years. And we are also seeing earlier cancers in the age group of maybe 30 to 40 and sometimes even lesser than 30. The problem with the cancers coming in the younger age group is that they are more aggressive to treat. They are they are hormone negative, and what we say is a triple negative breast cancers, very aggressive tumors and difficult to control. Next, please.
Join to see like, but the
So, what are the symptoms of breast cancer? Next. So, 70% of the symptoms, that is breast abnormalities, are diagnosed by breast self-examination. So, what is breast self-examination? Well, I'll tell you later. Okay, 40% of the diagnosed breast cancer are detected by the woman herself who feel a lump, and in 78% of time that lump feels like a hard rock in the breast. Okay, so let's go next. So these are the basic main outlines of symptoms. So first is the lump in the breast. So something like a feeling of a hard rock in the breast anywhere over the breast should be reported. Pulling in of the nipple, that is, if the nipple is pulled in on one side, then it's a matter of significance. Any dimpling of skin. So dimpling is something, if you get a dimple on the face, it's something similar to that, where you get a dimple over the breast. That means the tumor is pulling in the skin from within. Okay, dripping, that is any blood discharge from the nipple is a sign of breast cancer. Okay, any redness or rash over the breast, that is a skin changes over the breast, should be reported for examination. Okay, next please. A similar, another slide with the same points. That's lump in the breast or the armpit, that is the underarm. Nipple discharge, that is particularly blood discharge. Changes in the breast appearance, that is one is elevated and one is below. Any change in the nipple. Okay, itching on the breast, red or swollen breast, pain in the breast or chest area, and nipples become sensitive. So these are breast cancer signs. So what I was telling you is breast self-examination. So can I examine my breast on my own to screen myself? This is a very common question. So these slides, the next 3 or 4 slides, should be a take-home message for everyone. So how to perform a self-breast examination? So there are 3 methods to do it. One is in front of a mirror, one while having bath, and one while lying down. Next. So in front of the mirror, you stand with your arms by your side, over your head, over on your hip, and slightly bend forward. So in 4 positions you need to examine yourself. That is hands by your side, hands over the head, hands on your hip, and hands slightly and body slightly bent forward. So the first time you see, study, feel, and look. Examine regularly both the breast. Look for any changes. What changes you will see? Changes in the size of the breast, nipple inversion, nipple discharge, nipple deviation, pulling in of the nipple to one side, any skin changes of the breast, any lump in the breast, dimpling or bulge on the breast. So these should be reported. The second method, if you see, is while lying down. While lying down, it's better if you place a pillow under your shoulder, the side which you are examining. So place the same side hand behind the head. check the entire breast with the opposite hand, and the examination should be with the finger pads. It should not be between fingers. Okay, check the underarm, check for nipple discharge, and check the opposite breast. Okay, and the third way of doing it is while in the shower. So while in the shower, why? Because you're more comfortable in the shower. Doing it with a soapy hand is much more sensitive than doing it without a soapy hand. You can pick up small lumps as well, very significantly with a soapy hand. Examine both the breast and underarms. Now, how will you examine the breast is by the picture depicted on the right lower corner. That is three methods. Either you go from periphery to center or center to periphery, or up to down fashion. The important thing is that you have to examine all the quadrants of the breast, not just examine one area. Next, please. So same thing, hands by the side, hands over the head, hands on your hip. Check for nipple discharge. Palpate with the finger pads of your hand. Okay, an examination while lying down. When do you need to see me? So the first thing is, don't be shy or ignore yourself. Remember, the best protection against breast cancer is early detection. So we have written this in three different ways, just to drill it into your head that the best protection is early detection in breast cancer. The earlier it is detected, the better the outcome. Okay, so next. So when do you need to see me is if you have a family history of breast cancer with a known gene mutation. So we'll talk about the gene mutations a little later, of all the gene mutations. The second point is that women above the age of 40 years as a routine should do screening once a year. Now this 40 age criteria is a US criteria. In India, usually we follow the criteria of 45 and 50 years above. So women above the age of 50 years as a routine should get a mammography once a year, or maybe once in 1.5 to 2 years. Any age group with any of the symptoms that I've told you, that is lump in breast, nipple discharge, pulling in of nipple, deviation of the nipple, or nil bulge or lump in the breast. Relative with the breast cancer on the same side of the family with more than 2 individuals, one being less than 50 years. So they are at a higher risk. The relative with ovarian or fallopian tube or primary peritoneal cancer or a male breast cancer. These are cancers which are related with breast cancer. So you should be screened. First or second degree relative with breast cancer who is less than 45 years of age. So they also have the chance of having a gene mutation. So suppose you have these symptoms, what shall we do next? So the very next thing that we do is a triple assessment. A triple assessment is nothing but first a clinical examination by an oncosurgeon or a medical oncologist or a radiation oncologist to map the lesion. That is to find out how big is the lump, whether there are any lymph nodes in the underarms. Okay, the second thing is imaging. So imaging is a digital mammography nowadays that we do, or as an X-ray mammography that we call, with or without a sonomamography. Usually if the patient is young, the breasts are dense, then mammography, the lump is obscured in mammography. So then we have to combine it with a sonomamography. And the third in triple assessment is a FNAC or a true cut biopsy. Nowadays we don't do FNAC. True cut biopsy is nothing but a small piece of tissue which is taken out from the lump under local anesthesia, completely painless. Okay, the needle is shown to you on the left hand side corner down below. So it's a thick needle but goes in under local anesthesia, so no pain at all. So biopsy is nothing but a small piece of tissue which we take out from the breast for examination. Okay, next. So if you're diagnosed with breast cancer, what next? So the first thing that we have to do is stage your cancer. So clinical staging of the cancer, that is size of the tumor, presence of any enlarged lymph nodes. Okay, and then we see the biopsy report, what we have done on with that needle. So biopsy report will tell us a number of factors, whether it is aggressive cancer, what is the grade of the cancer, and hormonal status. So hormones are nothing but the estrogen receptor, estrogen and progesterone receptors which we see, and something which is known as the human epidermal growth factor receptor, that is the HER receptor. Okay, then we get some more tests, that is a blood test and a metastatic workup. So what is a metastatic workup? Metastatic means to detect if there is any spread throughout the body. So that we do with something known as a PET scan, positron emission tomography scan. So PET CT scan. And the third point is that a very detailed discussion and counseling and discussion of the treatment plan, what is going to be ahead. Next. So a small slide on the treatment capsule. So breast cancer treatment has become very standardized all over the world, and it's nothing, it doesn't depend on one's experience or something. It depends on now guidelines. So there are very specific guidelines for these type of tumors. This type of tumor has this treatment, this type of tumor has this treatment, and so forth. So surgery, radiation, hormonal therapy, chemotherapy, and targeted therapy. Under these 5 broad categories, their patient is treated for breast cancer. Okay, next. So when we talk about surgery, the very first question that comes to our mind is that, oh my God, will you take off my entire breast? So it is not that way. So breast cancer surgery has 2 types under broad categories. That is, one is a breast conserving surgery, which is known as a BCS or a BCT, breast conserving therapy or breast conserving surgery. And the other surgery is complete removal of the breast, that is known as a modified radical mastectomy. Okay, the difference between the two is that breast conserving surgery, when you do, patient has to have radiation compulsory. It is a compulsory thing to have radiation to the remaining part of the breast when you have a breast conserving surgery. But with a mastectomy, radiation can be avoided, but we have to see the final histopathology also. Next, please. So who decides whether it is a breast conserving surgery or a modified radical mastectomy? The survival rates are the same of both options. That is, whether we do a breast conserving surgery or a modified radical mastectomy, the survival rate remains same. Okay. It depends on the tumor location. That is, if the tumor is bang in the center of the breast, that is behind the nipple and the areola complex, then it is difficult to save the breast. Although it can be saved, but technically it is better to remove the whole breast. But if the tumor is away from the nipple areola complex and it is small, then a breast conserving surgery is possible. Your breast conservation surgery, on the hand, has a higher expense because a compulsory radiation must be given to the remaining part of the breast. This is the reason why many patients, after counseling and discussion of the treatment plan, they want to avoid radiation and they opt for complete removal of the breast. Okay, but we also tell them that after the final histopathology, if the reports are really bad, that is, if there is extensive spread and there are aggressive features, then they may have to take radiation in spite of removing the complete breast. But on the whole, if the factors are good, then radiation can be avoided if you do a complete mastectomy. So what is early breast cancer and what is advanced breast cancer? So stage 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3 are early breast cancer. Stage 3, stage 4 are advanced breast cancers. So next, please. So the slide, the stage 0 means that the tumor is still within the ducts. That is the blue lines which I showed you on the first slide, anatomy. They are still within the ducts, and that is called as a ductal carcinoma in situ. Stage 1 is, now it has formed a lump, it has grown beyond the ducts. Now it's called infiltrating duct carcinoma. Okay, their sizes are between 2 to 5 centimeters. Stage 2 is where now it has spread into the underarms, into the nodes. Stage 3, it has gone into the chest as well. And stage 4, it has gone beyond the organ, beyond the breast. That is into lung, liver, brain, bone. So that's the stage 4 is the last stage. So in this slide, this is another slide which you should take home as a take-home message, that we are aiming for detecting patients in the stage 0, stage 1, stage 2. Okay, so there you can see that the breast cancer survival rates in stage 0, 1, 2 are almost 93 to 100%. Whereas in stage 3, there is a straight drop down to 72, and stage 4 is about 22%. So the main aim of having such lectures is to educate people to report the symptoms as early as possible. Okay, next. So the very next question that we get is that if I can avoid radiation, why can't I avoid chemotherapy? So the answer to that is chemotherapy, as far as possible, can be avoided, but in a very early situation, like very small tumors less than 0.5 to 1 centimeter, and if they are hormone receptor positive and it is not spread to the underarm, that is node negative. So overall, chemotherapy usually cannot be avoided. It is indicated for all cancers, that is infiltrating duct carcinomas. But there are certain histopathologies where we can still avoid chemotherapy. Okay, next. So what can I do to prevent breast cancer? So some factors which I have enlisted, that is first is early detection. That is the only way to beat breast cancer. So go for regular checkups, go for a regular screening mammography if you're above the age of 50 years, and get yourself checked. That's early detection is the key to survival against breast cancer. The next one is these are the things that we can do in our day-to-day activities. That is, keep a healthy weight. So how will you calculate healthy weight? And a very common formula that I can give you is your height in centimeters minus 100. So my height is 5'6", that comes to 165 centimeters. Minus 100 from that, my ideal weight should be 65 kgs. So that's how you calculate your ideal weight. Okay, exercising regularly, a regular exercise of about 30 to 40 minutes is a must. Getting enough sleep, 6 to 8 hours at least. Limiting alcohol intake, I would say rather stop alcohol intake. And breastfeeding your babies for at least 6 months. So these are the things that we can do to reduce our risk of breast cancer. The other things we cannot change. Hormonal changes cannot be changed. So is breast cancer hereditary or familial? Yes, it is. So 35% of the breast cancers are running in families. 25% are familial breast cancer, 10% are hereditary breast cancers which have a known gene mutation, what we commonly call as BRCA1, BRCA2, or the BRCA1 or BRCA2. Okay, and 65% are the ones that are sporadic, that they don't have any significant family history, that is, don't have any gene mutation. Next, please. So hereditary breast cancers, these are the genes. We don't need to know them in detail except for BRCA1, BRCA2, which is quite common. The rest of the genes are I wouldn't say very, so they are rare, but they are there. But BRCA1 and BRCA2 are the most common ones, which are hereditary breast cancer genes. Next, please. So what should I do if I have a familial history of cancer? Next, we should ideally meet a genetic counselor and we should get screened. There is a genetic counselor for every patient with a family history of cancer. So they have some points which they note, and they assess your risk for development of cancer. So accordingly, then they tell you that you should get yourself screened. And as I taught you, breast self-examination should be done every month if you're a high-risk category, and clinical examination every 6 months. Okay, and the last slide for the breast cancer topic is genetic testing. So when is it indicated to do genetic testing? Is that when you have a known gene mutation, you have a high risk factor, you should get yourself tested for breast cancer genes. Most common is the BRCA1, BRCA2. As you all know, Angelina Jolie has got it done and she was detected of BRCA1 gene. So the good thing about this is that if you're detected, you have a risk of developing cancer, which is as high as 45 to 65%. Okay, so 45 to 65% of the women who have BRCA1, BRCA2 will develop breast cancer by the age of 70. So in such a situation, what we advise is to completely prophylactically remove both the breast. Okay, if at all ovary is involved, ovary oophorectomy also can be done, but it should be done after the completion of the family. So genetic testing basically gives you an idea to chance to learn about yourself and get treated prophylactically if you have an inherited gene mutation. All right, next. All right, that was about breast cancer. We'll take some questions, Christina, or we'll go to the next topic.
Yes, sir, we can take some questions. Do we have any questions? You can put it on the chat box, or can we proceed? I think let's proceed, sir. Then we'll take the questions at the
All right.
end.
All right. All right. All right. So we'll move on to oral cancer. So oral cancer is nothing but the cancer of the oral cavity. So there are different parts of the oral cavity. So lip cancer is lip is one part. So lip cancer, when it occurs on the cheek, it is known as buccal mucosa cancer. When it occurs on the tongue, it is known as tongue cancer. When it occurs on the gum, it is known as gingival cancer. When it occurs just below the tongue, it is known as the floor of mouth cancer. When it occurs on the roof of the mouth, that is called the palate. That is called palate cancer. And there is something known as oropharyngeal cancers, which are the food pipe that covers the tonsillar area, the base or back of the tongue, and oropharynx. Next. Next. So basically, oral cavity is the uppermost part of the gastrointestinal system. It is lined by stratified squamous epithelium. That is the lining of the throat. More than 90% of the oral cancers come under the category of squamous carcinomas. So squamous carcinomas is a type of cancer which is a very aggressive cancer, squamous carcinomas. So why are we talking about this cancer? Next. So almost twice as many men die from mouth cancer than women. Okay, so it's very common. There are more deaths from mouth cancer than there are road traffic accidents. Next. So it is more common in males. It is 8th most common worldwide, 2nd most common in India to breast cancer, and it is on the rise and a very aggressive cancer because they are squamous carcinomas. They just infiltrate into structures around them. Next, please. So this is the latest data. So 14 December, the updated Globocan data showed there were 19.3 million cases and 10 million cancer deaths in 2020 due to oral cancer. What is the data on India? So it is the second most common cancer to breast cancer. India has 1/3 of the oral cancers in the world. So 30% of oral cancers are in India. Okay. And among all the cancers in India, 10% are oral cancers. Globocan data in 2018 showed about 1,19,000 cases detection, new cases in India, of which 72,000 patients died. Okay, so this cancer is so bad that it doesn't only kill the patient, but it also makes them suffer and die. So men suffer and die more than women. Next, please. This is just to show you how bad this cancer is that one person dies every 10 minutes in India from oral cancer, which is caused by basically chewing of tobacco and alcohol consumption. Next, please. So if you see the data on India, the most number of cases are in the northeastern area, that is the Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. But if you see Maharashtra is not very far from Uttar Pradesh. It's 11,000 cases. So we are not far, and this is basically a habit-related disease or a habit-related cancer because of tobacco chewing, alcohol usage, and betel nut usage. So we'll see that ahead. So a little bit about the anatomy. Next, please. So I think everyone will know this anatomy. So we'll just go brush it up. The upper lip, then the upper gum is known as the gingiva. Then you have the upper teeth or the upper jaw. Okay, then the roof of the mouth is called as a palate. The palate is divided into a hard palate and a soft palate. The thing in the center which drops down from the soft palate is known as the uvula. Okay. On below is the tongue, upturned tongue. The center of the tongue is held by the lingual frenulum. The portion below the tongue is known as the floor of the mouth. Then you have the lower jaw with lower teeth, and the lower teeth are lined by gums, lower gums, which is known as the lower gingiva. Okay. On the either side is the cheeks. So cheek lining is known as the buccal mucosa. Okay, and you have the lower lip. Next, please. So who are the people at risk? So the people at risk are the following people. One is the people who are using tobacco. So next slide. So a tobacco product usage if you see, can be either in the smoking form or it can be in the smokeless form. So smoking forms are everyone knows, that is the cigars, e-pipes and e-cigars and BDs and cigarettes and all the various factors which cause smoke. And smokeless tobacco is the snuff, dry snuff, snus. All these things are tobacco chewing form. So tobacco can be either smoking or it can be chewing form. Both cause oral cancers. Next, please. Okay, the second risk factor is drinking alcohol. So drinking alcohol not only causes oral cancer, but it also causes the other cancers like throat cancer, voice box cancer, that is larynx cancer, esophagus, that is a food pipe, the large bowel cancer, that is colon and rectum, also liver cancer and breast cancer. Next, please. The third important risk factor is betel nuts or areca nut, or commonly known as supari. So the supari is very commonly used in the pan masala. This causes something known as oral submucosal fibrosis, which is nothing but a fibrosis of the lining of the buccal mucosa of the cheek. So this causes like a leathery appearance of the cheek lining, which in turn is a pre-malignant factor for developing oral cancer. Next, please. So this is a slide which everyone should see. Smoking only will cause 18 times risk. Alcohol only will cause 10 times risk. Betel nut chewing only will cause 28 times risk. But if they are combined, you can see the difference. Smoking alcohol 22 times, alcohol and betel nut 54 times, smoking and betel nut 89 times. And if you're having all three together, 123 times. So it's very, very high risk. Next, please. The next risk factor is oral sex. So oral sex spreads this virus known as the human papilloma virus, which is nothing but a virus which causes cancer of the oropharynx. So tonsillar cancer, base of the tongue cancer, food pipe oropharynx cancer, these are caused by human papilloma virus. Overall, these cancers have a good prognosis. They have proliferative tumors. They respond very well with radiation and chemotherapy. So overall, their prognosis is much better than the cancers which occur over the tongue, cheek, and all cheek lining because of tobacco and alcohol and betel nut. Next, please. The next risk factor, quite common in our Indian scenario, that is sharp teeth and improper fitting dentures. So these improper dentures or sharp teeth constantly abrade against the lining of the oral cavity, leading to trauma. So chronic trauma can cause cancer, which is not rare. It is quite common to have cancers just because of sharp teeth. Next, please. So age group, this age group basically is in the 6 to 7 decade, but now because we are seeing so many people with usage of tobacco, betel nut, we're seeing it in ages up to even 30 years. And the problem I told you with younger age group cancer is that it is more aggressive, very aggressive biology, very difficult to control. And I told you men are more than women. It is caused in men more than women, not as a thing, gender thing, but because men are having the habitual these habits, bad habits more. Next, please. So symptoms. So basically oral cancer, the most common is a non-healing wound in the oral cavity or an ulcer, which is not healing. Okay? Bleeding from that ulcer or the wound, it is more often painless. Any swelling over the cheek or the neck, painless loosening of teeth, and advanced symptoms like temporal headache, that is headache over the lateral side of the head, earache, recent onset trismus. Trismus means closing of the mouth, and cough. Next. So we'll take some examples just not to scare anyone, we'll just go through it fast. So this is a lesion over the retromolar trigon and the palate. So palate cancer. Next please. Okay, this is a small ulcer, non-healing ulcer over the tongue. It's a tongue cancer, very early tongue cancer. Next please. This is a lesion over the gums where you can see that his teeth have fallen off from there. Painless loosening of teeth. So this is a gingival cancer. Okay, this is a upper lip cancer or angle of mouth cancer. You can also see the tobacco stains on his teeth. So and you can also see that his mouth is not very well opening. We are using our fingers to actually show and click the picture for the upper lip. So this is some combination of tobacco and a betel nut user, which has caused tobacco-related cancer and is also caused submucosal fibrosis of the cheek. Next, please. Okay, this is a little bigger lesion on the tongue, lateral tongue cancer. Next, please. This is a floor of mouth cancer. That is, the tongue is turned upwards and the photo is clicked. This is a tumor just below the tongue, which is known as the floor of the mouth. Next, please. This is a lip cancer, cancer over the lip. Next. This is again a lower gingival cancer. So how to detect oral cancer? So similarly, like breast self-examination, we have something known as self-oral examination. Just look for the lining of the entire oral cavity for any ulcers, patches, lumps, bumps in the entire oral cavity and all the parts of the oral cavity that I told you. There's the lip, gingiva, the palate, soft palate, tongue. Base of tongue usually is difficult to examine because of the gag that you get. It's known as a gag reflex. And the buccal mucosa you should examine. The folds of the buccal mucosa you should examine. Next, please. So what to do if an oral ulcer is not healing? So very often after this lecture, we get calls saying that I have an ulcer and it's not healing, I'm panicking. So first of all, don't panic. Wait for at least 2 to 3 weeks for healing. The most common ulcer in the mouth is an aphthous ulcer, which usually heals in 2 to 3 weeks. If it is not healing by 2 to 3 weeks, yes, definitely see a surgical oncologist if it's not healing beyond 3 weeks. Get examined and get investigated. Next, please. They are suspected with oral cancer now. What is to be done next? So first is again a clinical examination, mapping of the lesion. That is, mapping means to find out what part of the oral cavity is involved, whether it's a cheek, whether it is a tongue, whether it's a floor of mouth, where it is a dual lesion. That dual means either it is a gingival with buccal mucosa, or a tongue with floor of mouth, or a tongue with bone, tongue with gingiva. So mapping of the lesion properly needs to be done. Second thing is to check for any lymph nodes in the neck. Biopsy, which may be a punch biopsy, incisional biopsy, and excisional biopsy. The most common biopsy that we do is a punch biopsy, which is a small piece of tissue removed from the ulcer under local anesthesia, okay, which is totally painless, and it is sent for microscopy. The third test that we do is a CT scan or an MRI, depending on what part of the oral cavity is involved. So some cancers like tongue cancer, we require an MRI. Some cancers like buccal mucosa, we require a CT scan. Okay, a routine blood examination for a general workup of all your complete health status. Next, please. So next is counseling. So basically, oral cancers are they are mutilating surgery of the face. So it's very important that we counsel the patient before we go in for surgery. So surgery for the primary lesion, that is someone's face needs to be cut off, lip needs to be cut off, tongue needs to be cut off. So surgery of the primary lesion discussed in detail with the patient. Second thing is lymphadenectomy. Lymphadenectomy is dissection of nodes from the neck where the cancer spreads. And the third is reconstruction. That is, a plastic surgeon will always be involved to recreate what we have removed. So if someone's tongue is removed, we recreate the tongue. Someone's cheek is removed, we recreate the cheek. Someone's palate is removed, we have to recreate the palate. So whichever part is removed in the oral cavity, we need to recreate it. So a plastic surgeon should be involved most of the times. Next, please. So treatment options. Basically, in oral cancer, the treatment is surgery or chemotherapy radiation. Next, please. So surgery, main treatment, followed by radiation or chemotherapy radiation, targeted therapy and immunotherapy. Targeted therapy and immunotherapy are not very well established treatment lines in oral cancer as of breast cancer. Breast cancer is a very standard treatment, targeted therapy, immunotherapy. But for oral cancer per se, plain old surgery and chemotherapy radiation or just radiation. Next, please. So same thing what I told you before, 3 parts: the main surgery, that is a primary surgery or a commando composite resection, followed by a modified radical or a radical neck dissection and a plastic reconstruction. Next, please. So after the primary treatment, that is after surgery, anything more? So as I told you, after the primary treatment, after surgery, if the tumor is in the stage 1, then nothing more. Okay, stage 2, maybe we may need to add radiation. If it is stage 3 or stage 4, we may need to add even chemotherapy to radiation. So for early lesions, either surgery or only radiation. For advanced tumors, the surgery has to be combined with radiation or chemotherapy radiation, what we call as a multi-modality therapy. Next, please. How to avoid oral cancers? Very simple. So you first avoid alcohol, avoid tobacco, avoid betel nut. Okay, sharp teeth should be smoothened by any dentist. Ill-fitting dentures should be replaced or reshaped. This is a regular dental checkup should be done just to get all your teeth smoothened. If you are wearing dentures, then make sure the dentures are not hitting any area in the oral cavity. If at all it is hitting, you should get them cut or reshaped and replaced to the oral cavity shape of yours. Next, please. So is this cancer hereditary? So oral cancers are not hereditary. They don't run in the family. If I'm detected once, can I get a second cancer again? So oral cancers are habit-related cancers. So tobacco, when you're chewing, will pass down through your entire GI system, including your urinary system. So you can get a second cancer if you get an oral cancer. Next, please. So it is, the answer is yes. Once oral cancer detected, you can get a second cancer. If you continue tobacco or alcohol, you will increase your chances. So it can be anywhere along the gastrointestinal system, lung, urinary bladder, breast cancer, anything. You can get a second cancer. So should always be on a regular checkup and a regular follow-up. Next, please. All right, I think that was the end of the talk for oral cancer. We'll take some questions, I think. Christina?
Yes, any questions from anyone? You all can unmute yourself and then you can ask questions. Or if you want, you can just put your questions in the chat box and Dr. Teal will answer them for you. Anyone wants any questions to be answered?
Hello, Christina. I'm Sharon.
Yes, yes, Sharon.
I would like to ask sir one question.
Yes,
What is
Sharon.
the sir? I'm a physiotherapist in a hospital. If you
Yes,
can
yes,
give me
yes.
few guidelines regarding how we can go for physiotherapy for post any mouth cancer. How do we start, and how much
So
range
post
should we
mouth
achieve?
cancer, so it's very simple. So the things that first of all, the areas that are involved are the oral cavity, the neck, and probably a chest and shoulder. So post oral cancer surgeries, you should give physiotherapy first of all to the neck. Now again, neck physiotherapy will depend on what surgical reconstruction has been done. So if a plastic surgeon has done a microvascular free flap, that is a free flap from the forearm or from the leg or from the thigh, then they don't want the neck to be moved too much because they have done a anastomosis under the microscope. So usually a neck physiotherapy usually avoid for the first 5 to 7 days, but shoulder physiotherapy should start off immediately after the surgery. So basically, the spinal accessory nerve is completely delineated during the surgery. So movements of the spinal accessory nerve involvement. So you're basically your trapezius. All the movements involvement with trapezius movements should be exercised. So basically overhead abduction of your shoulder, okay, back, and abduction of it. Basically, it's abduction of the shoulders. And neck
Okay.
movement you can start one maybe about 5 to 7 days from surgery once the flap is completely set in. Okay, and the last exercise that you start off with is mouth stretching. Mouth stretching usually we don't do very early because the stitches that we take may open up. We fear that it may open up. The fear is that his treatment gets delayed beyond if the stitches open up. So usually we avoid mouth stretching for maybe about 2 to 3 weeks, and you can start it off. All exercises can be started off by the 3rd week.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, welcome.
So we have one more question from Zara. How do
Yes.
you screen for oral cancer?
So screening, see, oral cancer basically, why do we screen when we can't see something? So basically screening for colon cancer, screening for breast cancer, these are something which cannot be seen from outside, and they're screened because x-rays can detect something. But for oral cancer per se, self oral examination, and you can definitely see everything of the oral cavity in a mirror. So if you just see yourself in the mirror, oral cavity, I told you, examine for any ulcers, any patches, white patches, red patches, black patches should be immediately reported because they're not normal in the oral cavity. And see whether if there's any ulcer, see if it is healing or not healing in 3 weeks. If it is more than 3 weeks, it is not healed, definitely come and get examined. If at all a biopsy is required, we should do a biopsy. But per se, for a test for screening, if you ask me, X-ray, CT, MRI, there's no test as such. There's no test that you can do. It's just you get, if you fear cancer and you're a tobacco chewer or betel nut chewer or alcohol usage, come and just get examined once. That's the cheapest way, the best way for screening. There's no need for a CT scan. There's no need for an MRI. There's no need for any X-ray.
Okay.
Alright.
Any more questions? Okay. I don't think there's any more questions, doctor.
All right.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us today. If you all do have any more questions, or if you want to come and personally meet our doctors at Holy Spirit Hospital, please do come. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.